What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another panel show, guys. And I think there's a lot to digest between Ange's comments, between the Man City game. The whole seems to be a massive split in the fan base at the moment between opinions on what Spurs fans should have wanted out that Man City game. And to dissect all of that, we have got Brains and Johnny H back on the panel. How are we doing, Brains?
Yeah, very good. Very good. I was at the game. It was a little bit odd, but yeah, it's everything that happened at the game was very peculiar. It was really strange to see, and we'll get into it. But me personally, I feel great. I just feel good right now. I mean, I can see everything that's going on, but I'm like super stoked that I've learned in my life through all the things I've been through to like not only live for one thing in your life, because if you do, you're just walking into pain. So that's something I'll leave there. But yeah, it's an interesting time.
Especially if that thing is Tottenham Hotspur, that's for sure.
Exactly what I'm
saying. Johnny, how are we doing, brother?
I'm all right. Listen, Ange has left the room, dropped the grenade, and left the thing. Right, and we're in stun mode, and we're sort of picking up the pieces, and the fan base is imploding a bit. But what you were saying, Brains, is, like every year since a child, right, only have one focus. We have a dream. We start the season with hopes and dreams of winning titles, winning cups. Will we sign our favourite player? And then as the season goes on, it fades into a distant memory, and then we're left with dust. But we go again, and we'll go again. We'll go again next season once this one has ended.
That's what we should be called, Go Again FC. It just seems like what we're doing every single year. But look, we've got 4 topics to go through today. It's going to be interesting to see what you guys' opinions are. The first topic that we're going to go through is, were the fans right to want to lose on Tuesday night and essentially hand Arsenal the title or hand Man City the title? We'll start with you, Brains. I know that your opinions kind of changed as the game got closer. So what is your opinion on that topic?
Well, first of all, I would say that the statement is inaccurate, as in the fans wanted to lose the game. I think that's highly, and what I found in the stadium is that it was even more inaccurate as the game got closer.
Thank you very much.
The conversations that you were having, even as a fan, the things you were thinking were becoming more and more like, oh, wait a minute. You know for a fact that well, his name's Sim on my screen, but that's quite clearly Ben on my screen, but that's quite clearly Sim right there. But
True.
For a fact, Sim's
apparently I'm Amir.
I'm only here for the beer.
But Sim was calculating all the different ways that we could still do this, and I was in the pub after football on Monday night watching Villa, and when it was 3-1 Liverpool, I'm thinking, oh, could we do it? Because that's what the heart of a fan is. That's what it's that the need to believe, and so you start to feel it, and then obviously you're kind of torn between this, for me, this like 30-year disgust and hate of, and I would say disgust and hate, and hopefully people would hear that there is banter even in those words, right? Like, I don't hate any individual person. I've got so many friends who are Arsenal fans. I'm gonna get banter tonight at football. Any which way the result went, I was gonna get bantered, right? Like if we won or lost the game, they were gonna flip around their argument, So but then going into the game, I definitely felt that it was definitely not all fans wanted to lose that game. Not at all. There was 60,000 people in the stadium, and every time we got close to, and we had loads of chances, there was an energy in the stadium of, we've got that. We could, and then the real kind of fan and competitive desire inside you kicks in and goes, we could right here beat the best team in the world. Like, and so you could feel everyone start getting up for it. Now, obviously, we heard that there's Arsenal fans in the building, so it was a lot of fun at first. And I was, and also to preface this, I was in 2 different places because I took one of Sai's tickets and I had my season ticket, so I moved down close to the front. So I got to see 2 different perspectives. And the higher up to the lower down, very different perspectives of fan feeling. It was really, really strange. But higher up, we were just singing "We Hate Arsenal." We were just singing all the kick his head in. We're singing all the songs, right? And it's just fun because we were getting at the scum that we know that are infiltrated us. We're getting at them, and it was so much fun in that way. But as I went down the front, and I saw an Arsenal fan who then TalkSport interviewed outside. I saw him getting into a fight. I saw him take his shirt off, and he had the black Arsenal top on. And I saw the fight kick off. I was walking past him going down to size spot. And as I went down the front, it was just after Haaland scored, and one guy who had an old school Spurs shirt on, he went Sete, and him and his friends start to do the pausing, right? They were immediately got at by everyone around them. Was like, don't you dare, you don't do that. We do not do that. And that was like the very hardcore fan going, get out of our club right now. And it was so extensive how hard they hit him. He was going, I'm a Spurs fan. What are you talking about? And you could see it in that moment, like, this is very different. Do you know what I mean? So there's no way that you can tell me after experiencing the vibe that night, that it was all Spurs fans want to lose. I would say in the overall that it was probably 80-20, that most fans went into the game with it's a win-win here. If we win, then we'll view that we might get top four. If we lose, well, then Arsenal don't win the league. It's great. So it was that opinion is very different from hardcore fans coming in, or from big influencers being able to say, like Flav and all of the channels being able to say, we want to lose this game. That is where there's a little bit of a swerve, and that's where people who are not day-to-day going to the lane, but are not really involved in the living and breathing moment of being at the club, who are watching from afar, getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning, who are live and die just the result. Those fans are going to find it extremely inflammatory and annoying if anyone is saying that we're willing to lose a game. You can see how it is just so different. Also, the kind of locality of where you're at. Also, how long you've been in here. Your internal relationships is so much going on. So it's really a difficult thing to say all Spurs fans wanted to lose the game. And then being in the stadium and feeling that's on. We can do this, No, but as Sonny's going through, I don't believe for a second, maybe if you're watching, but if you're in that crowd, I don't believe for a second you're hoping that man misses that shot. I just don't believe that, right? He did miss it. He didn't try to miss it. I was right behind the shot. He did everything right. He just got unlucky, right? So my feeling of it is, look, there was way more at stake in that game than just that game. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I put this to you. This is an interesting way to kind of view it, right? There's way more at stake for a club per game than an individual game or local rivalry, right? So
I can hear you.
Oh, we're back. The computer crashed 1 second. Oh, we're back. We're back live?
Computer
we're back.
Says no.
Okay. We're back live. Yeah. Sorry, Brains.
So I just wanted to put this one to you guys, just so that maybe you can view it from a flip side mentality of imagine after the game, or say any game that you guys went live on or did a show, and you came on and you were just low and you just didn't feel like doing a show that day, and you came on, you're picking your nose, you're just burping on every word, right? Now every show you might have 300 new fans watching. Say you have 300 new fans watching, which is quite likely for your channel. Now, 300 new fans are quite an easy link when you think three people have a reliable connection to 10 people who they can share. And then so three to 10 means that 300 fans can become 3,000 fans. Now, 3,000 fans is a very important jump, if you understand social media and the algorithms, to 100,000 fans. So every episode you guys do, there's literally a chance of 100,000 fans being the additor up if the show goes well, right? So you're never going to go on and do a bad show deliberately, right? Do you know what I mean? So now, just on your guys' level, because you are the exact same as Spurs, as a Spurs channel, you have loads more on the games than just the games, right? Now think about Ange. Think about Ange, what's at stake for him. So how many fans, new fans, watch every single Spurs game? Potentially 100,000 new fans every single game. Now, football is so big. New fans are actually super important. They add to the revenue of the club. If you get more in, you can get more expenditure. You can go for titles down the line if you grow your club. That's why clubs spend so much money on it. So from a club point of view, losing to Man City, winning against Man City is massive. Just beat the best team in the world. That can solidify the new fan growth of maybe 100,000 people in one moment, bang, like that. So for the club, there's so much on that moment. For Ange, if he does not raise his players up to want to go out and win that game, if he sees that anybody is not up for a game of football, it cracks everything to do with the mentality of the team. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Do you know what I mean? So the stuff that's on the games for him, he's also, his job's
But Brains, where was that against? I'm listening to what you're saying here. I get it, but you know,
I know
you're talking. Don't take it in isolation. Well, we are taking it in isolation because you know my journey with this started back, you know, with the Arsenal game, you know, and this run of games where we've been terrible. But going back to the stadium, just to solidify what you said about the stadium. I was interviewed 2 or 3 times before I went in, and people asked me. In fact, I spoke to Ben beforehand, and they said, "You know, what do you want from the game?" I said, "Look, I've never been so conflicted. You know, if we lose to Man City, the pain will last for a day, right? If we beat Man City, the pleasure will last for a day. But the thought of Arsenal winning the title, that pain will last a lifetime. It's not about a day banter. It'll be brought up again and again and again. Spurs won the league. Now, okay, that's how I felt going into the stadium. When I got into the stadium, I didn't have thoughts about losing. I didn't think, oh my God, you know, come on, guys, let's lose. I mean, when Sonny went through on goal, and I must disagree with you, Brains, I thought his body shape was all wrong. Okay, and he gave Ortega the one option. He knew through to his body shape which way to make the save. It was a great save. I'm not taking anything away from the save, but I didn't hear one person around me, and I was in the South Stand this particular game, say, "Oh, thank God for that." They were all saying, "Sonny, what are you doing? How, you know, how is that?" Every decision that went against us was vocalized. Okay, so I didn't get that sense of you know, Spurs fans wanting to lose. What I noticed was the media. You know, I was outside. There was Sky, there was ITV, there was BBC, there was Bein Sports, and they were firing it all up. They've been firing it up for the last couple of weeks. You saw, you know, the celebrities, Piers Morgan in a Spurs shirt. You know, come on, we're Spurs fans for the day. You know, take umbrage with that. You know, don't just focus on Spurs fans. And I think that we would have moved on from all of this, from all of what we're going to be talking about in this show, had Ange just let it go, right? We played probably the best football that we played in the last 3 or 4 months in that game. That's my opinion. And had he just let it go and said, you know what, I can see a lot of positives today in that performance. And we would have said, you know what, Ange? Yeah, 100% right. We can see the positivity. But he's left us with that hand grenade, with negativity, infighting, and pondering, what did he mean?
Yeah, we'll get into those comments in a minute, but the way I kind of look at it is, Brains, you said 80-20% were probably in support of Tottenham inside the stadium from where you were and what you were thinking. The way I look at it, I think it was maybe even that percentage the flipped way around going into the game. I think the majority did want Spurs to lose going into the game. But Matt Law put out a good tweet, or I think it was Matt Law, I can't remember, it was one of these journalists put out a tweet before the game saying he wonders if it's going to be like that in the stadium, or is natural instinct for Spurs fans going to kick in, and are they going to support their own club during the football match? And I think that's exactly what happened.
Correct.
And I think when we were in the stadium, we all did flip to natural instincts, but it wasn't complete natural instincts, because I felt when Spurs were to miss a chance, when Sonny missed that chance, it wasn't a feeling of, oh shit, Spurs have missed a chance. It was more of a feeling like, oh well, we've missed a chance. It wasn't like in complete passion about Spurs winning, but as soon as Man City scored, there was that little 10-second silence, and then the whole stadium rose and started singing "We Hate Arsenal," and it all came about Arsenal. So.
Yeah. But that's what I mean about the we kind of viewed it like a win-win. Like, so, okay, well, you know, Haaland's got the second. You just went, oh, well. And you weren't bummed like you would other games. But I definitely don't think, like, when you're in there, you're going, I want us to yeah, it's just not natural. Even though the idea of Arsenal winning to you is not natural. Same as being in the stadium when a game's on. It's just not natural to watch.
There was no willing people City to score. There was no one there going, come on, City, like when they were through 1-1, like, oh, come on, let's score. No. There was none of that. There was none of that as well. Like, so I think that there was obviously, I think the majority of fans, you know, when Spurs had a chance, they got off their seat. They were looking for a goal. Where, you know, when especially early in the game, when Bentancur had that chance, you know, good effort. But for me, when Son went for on goal, I did have an audible "oh no!" Like, I was like, "Oh god," because I have to say, because at that moment, with 5 minutes to go, we weren't going to win the game at that point. I think if he goes through in that chance early in the game, where I think it's a different kettle of fish, and if we go 1-0 up or something, that probably doesn't get that reaction from me. But me knowing that if Son scores that chance and we draw the game, we don't get Champions League anyway. And Arsenal, we gift Arsenal the title as well. So a draw is kind of the worst out of both worlds, basically. I didn't want Son to score that chance for me. I really didn't. I think it would have been different if it was earlier in the game. But that moment, knowing that it was useless, that goal for us at that point, and it would have handed Arsenal the title, would have been terrible. And, you know, I was chatting to a Spurs fan yesterday. This is a Tottenham fan who very much wanted us to win the game going into this game. He was very much on the side of, I want Tottenham to win. And he admitted to me that when he saw Son go through, he's like, I don't want Son to score there. Because he knew a draw doesn't help us. A draw doesn't help us. And all it does is give Arsenal the title. So I think from that point of view, I understood that at that point. But look, in terms of this whole conversation, did Spurs fans right for wanting Arsenal to lose? I think if you're a fan not truly understanding what the rivalry means, you know, this is a rivalry of over 100 years of history. This runs deep within football fandom and the Tottenham Hotspur fan base,
especially if you're North London based.
Yeah, especially if you're based in North London. So it's not as simple as you know, you should want Tottenham to win every game. Yes, in a perfect world, you obviously, I'm a Tottenham fan. Anyone who's watched any of our streams or any of our videos, of course I want Tottenham to win every single game. I live and breathe Tottenham Hotspur. This is my whole life.
And you know that your predictions are always wrong.
They're always wrong. But
what religion are you? I'm Tottenham. That's
exactly. That's Tottenham what I follow.
Is my religion.
But Tuesday night was just a 1 in a million event where we virtually had I know people say we had a shot at the Champions League, but let's be honest, I think if we would have won, I do think Villa would have got their draw. All they needed was a draw. And I think they would have got a draw at Palace. I think if they needed to win, if they would have lost to Liverpool and they needed to win the game, I think maybe that's more of a case. But the fact that they only needed a draw away at Palace to get it was very little opportunity of us getting Champions League. The likelihood is if we would have won, we still would have missed out on Champions League. So, and for me as well, Ange, I know we'll get into Ange comments later, but Ange has been banging on for the last few months that top four doesn't matter. That what matters is progression. What matters is progression, how you're progressing as a club, and that's definitely what we saw on Tuesday. Us going toe to toe, one of the best teams in Europe. So for me, I didn't see Champions League as this big deal. I know I personally have been one of the ones who want Champions League. I did want to get in the top 4, if for sure, and I wanted us to try our best. But when it came to this moment, it didn't mean that much to me that I'm willing to allow Arsenal to win their first title in 20 years, and us having to contribute to it just for the sake of a slight chance of getting into the Champions League, which is only going to be a short-term little boost anyway. In terms of long-term, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference whether in the Champions League or not. It shouldn't do anyway. So I think Tottenham, I know obviously not all Spurs fans felt that way, but I do think Spurs fans who did feel that way are well within their right to feel that they're more than happy to not win this game and for City to win just to stop Arsenal, because that is what football rivalry is all about.
And I think when you're looking at the discourse that's come out after this game between infighting between Spurs fans and name calling and calling them not real Spurs fans and all this kind of stuff, I mean, a lot of the fans that wanted Arsenal to win have been Spurs fans since the day they were born, home and away, going to every single game, spending every penny that they own on the football club. I think it's an absolute disgrace, some of the things that people are calling each other, and you can't tell another fan what they should believe and what they should hope and what they should want out of a particular game. And I think everyone should just respect each other's opinion, and I think that's what it should come down to.
But also just a quick point as well. I think what gets people on people's nerves, I guess it's not necessarily wanting Tottenham to lose. It's maybe people over celebrating City winning, I guess. And I think anyone who was in the ground, I know we were chanting about we'll wait Arsenal, whatever, after in that period after City scored. But I don't think we were actively celebrating City goals and stuff. And I do think anyone celebrating a City goal or actively looking for them to score chances and stuff, that is obviously, a bit much.
When you're in that stadium, you do not sing a Man City song. I think that is over the line. And booing your own team as well.
We didn't sing the song, but
there was people doing it. And
I think that
idiot guy who kind of doesn't get it.
Brains, there was such a minority. I mean, listen, to some people though, just having the thought that you contemplated such a thing, you're not a fan. You're not a fan. Doesn't matter if you go every week, doesn't matter if you traipse up and down the country, doesn't matter, right? You're not a fan. Well, you can be a fan and have those thoughts. You really can, This isn't, like I said, we're not getting Champions League football this year because of that game last night. We're not getting it because of set pieces, tactics. We got 5 defeats in the last 6 games. We haven't kept a clean sheet in the last 20 games. We've only led once, I think, at half time this whole season. And their only wins in our last 10 games have been Burnley, Forest and Luton. Okay? And if you take our form, and let's be honest, in a snapshot of, can we agree 27 games is a snapshot of a good snapshot of the season? Since the Chelsea game, in those 27 games, we lie 16th. Now, if we flipped that around and we started with those 27 games.
Like Chelsea, but worse, we would have been 16th, where we would have been 16th in the first of the 27 games. I think the fan base would have been imploded. He would be under severe pressure. But whoa, what would we be like? Look at us storming towards, and look at us. We got 5th. The narrative would be completely different. Even if we'd lost that game, right? But we would have been fighting for that 5th place, and we were gallant losers. Okay, so I think you can choose whichever narrative you want. If I'd zoomed out at the beginning of the season, I would have taken 5th. I thought we'd get 5th or 6th. I would have taken 5th. We've lost Harry Kane, new coach who I didn't particularly want. And, I think all in all, we can assess it as being a successful season. If you want to, we can microanalyze everything and we can find fault. But I'm just eager to move on to next season, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems is is when people say that their opinion is how all Spurs fans think, and it's just that is like legit
Impossible.
an impossibility, right? Everyone's different. Everyone comes in it from a different point of view. I think differently about winning and losing because I come from it from a football perspective. Before I became a Spurs fan at 9 years old, I was already playing football for 3 or 4 years. So seeing Gaza and Lineker at the 90 World Cup, that ignited my desire to follow Spurs. But I am in everything I do in my life. I am that I have that athlete mentality of like you go for everything until the dying breath. It doesn't matter what, you must win. Like so I can't ever allow myself to have a different mentality from that. But then I don't expect anyone to think the same way I do, because sometimes my go till you die has actually been a problem. I've taken things way too far, so like you can't say my way is right, your way is wrong. And that's what you see a lot with the kind of online community and certain channels, and then people like argue the point, and then they think that's the kind of, that topic becomes a trend. And the worst thing about that, when a topic becomes a trend, like what Johnny's saying, the media pick up on that, even though it's not really the way anyone
doesn't represent the real fan. It doesn't represent the real fan. It's something that they've concocted.
You know what's even worse, Johnny, and this is what might lead into the pressure Ange is feeling, is that the media, and I call this weak journalism, and this is the problem, because in journalism, they now people don't get jobs, like they don't get trained to vet sources, they don't get trained, they rush to get articles out. It's all clickbait. The journal core that's in the pre-match and post-match pressers, they pick up on things that are happening on trends online, and they ask Ange Postecoglou about it. So I think that is just dreadful. So he's getting that from the press. He's getting told. I remember in that one press, he got told that it was a majority of fans online, by Charlie Eccleshare, by a big journalist, you know what I mean? He's got told that this is the way all Spurs, and that's what has angered people who don't think that way. They're going, I don't think like that.
Charlie denied it. Charlie said that was, I listened to the View of the Lane.
But in that denial,
that context was completely wrong, and that it came across as that, but that's not what he said.
But Johnny, the way that Ange jumped at it led you to believe that he's actually been getting this from the club, and then it's come out that someone or people in the club had been joking, oh, you're going to put the kids out. That person or people who thought it was appropriate to put that to the manager of the team, they should be fired immediately. That's insanely inappropriate.
If it's true.
If it's true, but you can see that Ange is kind of,
I think it's 100% true. I think it's 100% true. You know what the mentality is like within the club. We are always looking over the shoulder.
No, but listen, look, how once you've created the storm, you have to calm the storm, okay? And what better way to calm the storm than to feed a story?
Well, I guess so.
Listen, I want to go into it all, but that's how you feed the storm and you calm the storm. If you think half of the player stories come out just by chance, they don't. They're fed.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Stories for, stories against. And this story came out very, very quickly after the storm, because the club realised, oh my God, look what's happened. And now we're getting all these stories. I've also seen the story about Bentancur smashing up the changing room and what's his name? Ange saying he'll never play for the club again. I don't listen to any of it.
Who said that?
I haven't heard that.
I've seen there's been some messages going around, and you take it. I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. We'll come on to that anyway in your next topic.
But I just mean that, like, it's quite clear that Ange is getting it from a few different places, and then he's getting it from reputable press corps, and so I just think he's going, is this real? Am I genuinely being asked if I'm up for losing this game? Like, is this real?
I don't think they said that though, Brace.
No, I know, I know, but look how he didn't even anything he even said after the game. If I'm really honest, I didn't think he was calling out fans I didn't interpret like that. So that's what I mean about everything is interpretive. Do you know what I mean?
Inside and outside.
Yes. So, but inside could be just someone it could be a chef going, "Oh, play the kids." You know, like I just think he's got it from a whole different places that in this kind of situation you should lose the game, and I think that just is so offensive to him from his sports mentality that he's just saying,
But Brains, can I ask you a question, right? And genuinely, do you not feel that Ange enjoyed the roller coaster ride at the beginning of, everyone loves Ange, everyone wishes Ange was his manager? Look at me, player of the manager of the month, breaking records, everything was great. Since it started to go the other way,
yes,
we've seen angry Ange. We've seen Ange who, instead of killing a conversation dead, has almost consistently lit the fire underneath himself. Okay, and he hasn't put out the fires. He's thrown fuel onto the fire. He hasn't tried to quell conversations and topics, whether it be set pieces. I'm not interested in top four.
Yes,
there's no trophy for top four. There's no. So when you keep going on about that, and we're watching and witnessing defeats, and I'm going to Liverpool and I'm hearing him say that, I saw some progression. I didn't see progression. So by the time we arrive at the Man City game, it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've told us not to worry about top four. Top four is not important. Champions League, there's no medal for this. There's no. I've got bigger ambitions. So the fans have almost got to the stage where we don't believe in it, and now we're actually in that mindset. He's criticising us for it, and I just wonder, maybe Ange, look at what you're saying to the press, that you are the one that's making it worse for yourself. And what he did.
Funny, look at how things are interpretive, because when I was actually, and these guys will tell you, I've been quite vitriolic against Ange a lot this season. Like, I'm being honest with you. I've never said Ange out. I think it's important that when you when you disagree with a manager's decision, like you're right. You should be angry about it, and I totally feel fine about that. And so I was very much like getting so annoyed consistently with him refusing certain things. And this just happened to be one occasion with what he said turned me back on him. I don't know why. I actually liked what he said. So this is what I mean about people have different views of it. And I don't know why it's so different, but like
you don't understand what I'm saying, though, Bray. What I'm saying
I totally get what you're saying, though.
I mean,
totally do.
You can kill it. You can kill the conversation when you say you don't care about, when you're not, your focus is not on set pieces.
And I agree with you.
Game after game, you're conceding set pieces. What's Charlie Eccleshare going to say? Ange, it's another set piece. What have you got to say about it?
It's like, I don't care. I agree with that. And that's actually a lot of the stuff that I have been ranting about, is how he deals with those things, that he could easily just solve a situation. He could easily just solve it, but he kind of has that fiery personality in those moments. And so I thought the exact same thing all the way as you're thinking along. It's just what he said there weirdly reignited some fondness towards him in some strange way. Do you know what I mean? It's
did he do it for Conte? When Conte did it
did it
have the same effect?
No, but my point is also that even though it ignited like warmth towards him, I still think it was going to be I still think it might get him. It might do the exact same thing that happened to Conte. I can see this being that he might only have like 4 months, of the new season to go, because this stuff does spiral. And sometimes I think managers should get a little bit of press training of how to just avoid tricks, how to avoid the press's trick into getting you to say something that is inflammatory, because who really wins out of this? all the articles, all the press, all Talk Sports got so many viewers watching it. Who's really winning here? Not Spurs. Not
He's long in the tooth, Brains. He's long in the tooth. We're not talking about a 35, 40-year-old man.
No, he's not going to be told.
28-year-old guy who's a wise old. He's a wise man, right? You know, if you're going to take the plaudits and welcome them, you have to learn how to react to the negative connotations that are directed at you.
What I didn't like, obviously, I guess we'll get into his comments now. But what I didn't like,
I think we've been into them for the last 10 minutes, mate.
What I didn't like about his comments, I think what he says is probably correct in terms of the foundations of this club are fragile inside and outside the club. I don't think he's wrong in what he's saying, because I think that's something that we've known about this club for a very long time. It's something previous managers have called out about the club. Obviously, these stories now we're hearing about, staff members joking at him and things like that. Obviously, that's completely inappropriate for a football manager looking to win every single game, regardless of what the fans think. 100%, I believe Ange should be wanting to do everything he can to get every single point he can and win every single game he can in the Premier. He should be fighting tooth and nail, regardless of the scenario, to win every single game. That's 100%. That's what he's brought in here to do, to instill that mentality. What I didn't like about what you say is he said the last 48 hours have shown to me that the foundations of this club are fragile inside and out. I'm sorry, but what if the last 48 hours have shown to you that the foundations are fragile compared to the last 2 months, when we're getting battered left, right and centre, 4-0, 2-0, 4-0, 3-0 down in the North London derby? Did you not realise at that point that the foundations were fragile? Why is it when when the fans, all of a sudden have
given up,
have given up? Well, basically given up on top four after you've said that top four is not important anyway. When the top four's finally gone and we're about to gift Arsenal the title, essentially, now all of a sudden you've decided that you've finally seen that the foundations are fragile. It just seemed to me that what annoyed me about that was it seemed as though he's frustrated at the defeat. He's kind of taking out on the fans, and maybe maybe that fan in the stadium was still in his mind when he was thinking, because he had that altercation with the fan, and that fan obviously was reportedly, according to reports, said that why are you so animated in this game when in the North London derby you were just standing there with the arms crossed, and in this game you seem very, very animated, which obviously I don't think the fan should be shouting things at a manager on the touchline, and apparently that fan was ejected, which is absolutely right. But I just don't like the fact that for me, that seemed to be a frustration pointed at the fans based on the current circumstances. And as an ambassador of the football club, you shouldn't be taking your frustrations out on the fans, despite the current circumstances. Despite it as well that he is right, and when it comes to the fragility inside the club, we have known that for a very long time, and all these stories now coming out are showing that. So I understand all of this stuff is in his mind going to his press conference. It's clearly built up, and he's kind of let off some steam. I get that, but when he's saying the last 48 hours have shown that, if he even said,
it's honed in, isn't it? Yeah.
If he would have said, it's clear to me that the foundations here are fragile, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The fact that he said the last 48 hours have shown me how fragile the foundations, that is what is basically told all the fans, this is your fault, essentially. That is what he's saying. This is down to the fans are causing this problem, essentially. Because what's the only thing that's happened in the last 48 hours?
We don't know, but that's the thing.
Well, it's the fan discourse. We haven't had a game.
It's not just the fan discourse, though. It's the discourse from the journalists. It's the discourse from the stuff that's happened inside the club.
But it's the discourse around this. But it's everything. The fans wanting the team to lose.
Yeah, but it's not just the fans. It's inside and outside. Like he said, he's talking about journalists. He's talking about people inside the club, like staff. He's talking about fans as well. And I think he's talking about how focused everyone inside and outside the club are focused around Arsenal and are focused around Arsenal's title charge. And I don't think he wants that to be part of the mentality of the football club. And I think that
Neither
is...
do we.
No, he doesn't want that.
We don't want that to be the focus. But for this specific game, it was, because that's where we are. So
I blame Scott Munn, because what happened is Scott Munn went up to him and said, "Ange, here you go." He goes, "What's this?" He goes, "That's your budget." What? Are you having a laugh? That's my budget. It could be anything, guys. Look, we are guessing, because what he did He dropped the hand grenade, like I said, and he left the room, and he left us to ponder and digest it and come up with our own reasons. What was he talking about? Was he talking about Daniel Levy? Was he talking about the recruitment staff? Was he talking about the chefs?
No, I don't think he was talking about any of that.
But we don't know. We don't know, Ben, do we?
I think Ben's guess is most accurate, because it just seems like he's going, why is the mentality like this? You know, because he as an outsider, he surely shouldn't get this mentality.
Inside and outside. He didn't say one thing. He said,
that's what I mean. But like what Ben was saying,
inside and outside this club.
That's what I mean. He is saying that it's like the mentality around this situation is that there's a potential of, or even the jokes of us, like potential, and then the press picking up that Spurs fans might want to lose a game. You know, I just think that would have just annoyed him so much. And if someone inside the club mentioned that as well, it would have added up to it. Then a fan screaming him at the thing. Then he's hearing City being stuck. You can imagine it all just adding a very different thing that he would have thought that he was coming to a club to do. If he's coming here to change a mentality, that I'm willing to not do set pieces, that I'm willing to just go forward at all time. I'm willing to lose games if it is a case of we are just going forward. We're not passing back. We're just going forward. That is like he's trying to change the mentality of like, we must just go forward. I know we're going to lose games, but if we go forward constantly, then it's okay to lose.
But Brains, can I just say, right, you know, if I get in my car and I go in my car and I'm doing 10 miles an hour, I'm moving forward. But what's the use when everyone else is moving at 60 and 70 miles an hour, you know?
You got crash. You got crash.
No, but what I'm saying is, you know, like, you know, there's moving and then there's moving. I just think that, you know, that there's more to this. There's more to this story than meets the eye, in my opinion.
It could be very much.
At the end of the day, I think what his rant did, whether you think it's justified or not, it ignited this whole kind of discourse that we're seeing. And I think that it could have been so easily avoided if he just didn't mention anything in that press conference after the game. And I think everyone would just be normal right now. I don't think it would have created this whole big car crash of conversations that we're seeing of vitriol and hate on a consistent basis.
Ben? What would we
All
be
he just
saying,
said, just don't mention 48 hours, and I think no one would have cared.
You don't need to say anything. What we would have come away with, what I would have come away with from that game, great. You know, Dragusin, what a great first half. You know, how was he feeling? Look, I think there's discord somewhere within that camp. You know, let's be honest. If Destiny was there, Dragusin would still be sat on the bench. Giovanni Lo Celso, doesn't matter how bad everyone plays, he'd rather bring on Brian Gill and bring Gio on for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, right, every game. There's got to be some discord there. I don't know what it's about. I really don't. But there is something going on there. But like we said, like Ben said, like we've all said, had he not said anything or flipped in that moment, right, then we would be sitting here saying, you know what, we're going to finish fifth. And we can really see some shoots of recovery. There was some great things to look at. The back three with Dragusin, Romero and Mickey van der Ven. Instead of talking about that, instead of talking about the fact that Mikey Moore broke the record at 16 years and 9 months coming on, which should have been the things that we were talking about, we're left talking about the negatives instead of the fantastic positives that we could have taken and should have taken out of that game. And that is Ange's fault. That is not my fault. That is not Brain's fault. It's not any of our fault, and we were all in that stadium.
But I think what Ange is trying to do, what message he's trying to cross, is that he needs to change the mentality at this football club, and that is the conversation we're going to turn on to next. And can he change the mentality at this football club? And in my opinion, I mean, it's going to be exceptionally hard for him to do that when our arch rivals are doing as well as they are doing. And I think the main mentality problem is always going to stem from the top of the football club. And the reason why we're always looking over our shoulder at Arsenal is because of how unsuccessful we have been, particularly since Daniel Levy has come into this football club. So, Brains, do you think he can change the mentality at this football club?
Well, do you remember I came on that time and I bored both of you to near tears but with a 20-minute diatribe of how I saw that he couldn't, because of there is this weird thing now that we have since Poch, where you saw it with I mean, it happened very, very quick with Nuno, but then with Mourinho, when we're 6 days out from a title, from a game, but there was, what's important to realize that yes, they made that decision, and that was less about the fans. That was about not paying him money, right? But then in Conte, there was this build-up of fans going, "No, don't say anything bad about the manager," right? Because then your manager out, so then that gets shut down. But then so much build-up of, but no, manager out. We don't like the style, and it builds and builds and builds to the point where Levy's always in this case where he feels like I got to appease the fans somehow, and it's in lame little ways. But then he makes these big decisions to get rid of a manager, cut their knees off before they can really run. He doesn't just back Conte with a world-class centre back if you're going to play that way. We've built this system. Now we're going to out a manager. A new manager comes in, change the whole system, build a whole mentality. You can see how it's so stacked up against Ange to come into a club that is so desperate for titles. And you've got a man in who wants to build a new mentality. He wants to he will risk certain things for certain building blocks to be built. If he's going to get a certain style of play, he wants a play to be a certain way, and he's willing just to go. So he's got the fight of changing not just player mentality, but the way the players have grown up through academies. It's all boring football, but he's trying to change that in players. He's trying to get their mentality to go, forget that you're lacking confidence because you're coming back from a suspension or an injury. I need you to be brave every second. Be brave, be brave. And that is very difficult. Now, that's on the pitch. Never mind in the stadium. We're all bipolar. We're all mental. It's so difficult. People have gone through so much in their love for the club. They've taken so many journeys that it's very difficult just to say, this is how we must be now. This is how it must be. I'm going to come in. And it's so hard to believe in one man who's, let's be honest, he's not been in the Prem before. He's coming from leagues that are lower leagues. And he talks about, look, I know what derbies are like. And by the way, I would never equate the NLD to Rangers and Celtic. Rangers and Celtic is a 400-year religious war that's happened between...
I've been to those games, Brains. I've been to a lot of them, okay? North London derby's nothing.
Yes, and I would really hope that the stuff between Arsenal and Spurs fans never gets to what I've seen happen between Rangers and Celtic fans. You can't take your kids to a lot of Rangers and Celtic games a lot of the time.
No chance.
The two different gangs that parole outside the stadium, they knife each other. It is all goals. It's very dangerous. The fights happen from before the game all the way through the night. You don't want to live in a world where that is, we share North London. We shouldn't, fair enough. But you don't want to get in that side of the war. But here's a guy coming in saying, well, look, I took one of those teams. Yeah, but you didn't really, because Celtic were, I know Rangers were in a little bit of a dominant streak, but Celtic were close. They weren't that far off. A few players in, a little bit of win, and then it was easy to turn over. This is a different job. This is a magnum opus of a job. It's very difficult to, but look, he loses Harry Kane. He goes through a crazy injury crisis. It was a tough season. We still got fifth. Johnny's right. What we should be coming out of this whole thing is going, look, I saw some really interesting stuff in that City game. We got them, with our press got them to make mistakes on the ball. That mentality that the players did show, that is a building block. I feel like, yes, it was not there for certain games. And yeah, and he's probably going, look, if we get to a point where we lose all of the end games, he could be out, players are out. At the moment, we're going Basuma out, Kulusevski. We're all over the place. We're like, everyone out. So he's tried to come in and change the mentality, but really the way we're at it now, we're a bit in tatters mentality-wise. And we're all going, is this possible? So...
Did he not, Brains, did he not, though? Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but, we thought, let's get rid of the deadwood. We've got rid of a lot of the deadwood. We've got rid of a lot of the troublemakers. It's only really Ben Davis that's left there, the bookworm.
That gang leader.
the gang leader, right? Okay, you know, he carries a book with him as his weapon. Right? He set up a lovely book club, fantastic, right? But look, I just think fundamentally, you know, changing everything. Look, I when we'd won those 10 games, or we were unbeaten in those first 10 games, and then we had that nightmare game against Chelsea, and you know, we lost 5 players, 2 through suspension and 3 through injury, and we had that period. I was turning around to my friends and going, yeah, you wait till we get our team back, wait till we get our full strength team back. The team spirit there that was on the bench. I remember watching the game. There was a video, I don't know if you remember it, I don't know if it was the Liverpool game or another game, where they're all on the bench, the players were on the bench, and we score that goal in injury time, and all the players run off of the bench and they're on the pitch and everyone's celebrating. And I'm saying the camaraderie is back. The toxicity that was under Conte has gone. It's a miracle. Wait till we get our players back. Wait, let's see. And it never transpired. What actually happened was we never got our rhythm back. We got the players back, but there was something fundamentally missing. Now, what happened?
We actually got worse, Johnny. We actually got worse.
We have got worse. And that is my point. We got worse. So we're waiting for this special moment when all our squad is back and assembled, and we can show the Premier League what Tottenham are all about. And it's just imploded. And I don't want to hear people saying, oh, you're being a bit dramatic. Look, last night or the other night was our 12th defeat. Okay? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. 12 defeats. Okay? We done very well to finish 5th with 12 defeats, I think. But there's something fundamentally has fallen away. I don't see that camaraderie on the bench that I saw in those first 10 games. I don't see sometimes the belief. I also see something which I was so happy for at the beginning of the season, and that is under Conte, there was a fear of losing possession because Conte drilled it into him. Keep the ball, keep the ball, keep the ball. And if they lost the ball, they used to shout at each other and, they were fearful. When Ange came in, what I loved about him was this thing, play with no fear, right? Play with no fear, progress the ball. We saw them progress the ball. I remember in one of the first games, Romero made a bad pass and we conceded a goal. Everyone was coming behind him, slapping him on the back. Come on, we go again. And we saw that, willing to take risks. Everyone supporting each other. Now I see James Maddison shouting at Vicario about a pass. James Maddison having a go at someone else on the pitch. And I'm thinking, hang on. I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, what's gone on? What has gone on between these games? Okay, you're not winning all the games, but still, if you're together as a unit and as a team, where's that camaraderie gone? I'm seeing division on the pitch. I actually see people looking at each other when a goal's gone in, saying, that should have been your man. Why aren't you there? And that wasn't happening before.
But Johnny, this happens at the beginning of a rebuild. This is Ange's first season. He's still got so much more business to do.
No, I understand that, Ben. I'm talking about the first, what looked such...
Yeah, but the first 10 games, Johnny, was a new thing. It was a manager bounce. It was all these kind of fresh ideas, new approach.
Yeah.
I think these happen over time in a completely new rebuild. We know a lot of business still has to be done. A lot of players need to go. A lot of players need to come in. So these things should be expected in the first season of a new rebuild.
But what I'm saying is you asked about, the build, right? And what I thought was, wow, look how quickly he's built this mentality. And it was showed everywhere. It showed on the pitch. It showed in the interviews. It showed in all the pictures and videos and on the bench. And it was joyous, right? From a fan, having watched the toxicity of the last few years.
I think it's good. It's good because he knows who he can wean out and who he can keep. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to know in the first year of a rebuild. That's what Pochettino found out in the first year of a rebuild. And yeah, I know it's a different situation. The players that he got out were old and probably we all knew he didn't want to be here. But he needs to wean out who he doesn't want to keep and who's fit for his project. And I think this is telling him exactly what he needs to know.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. But you asked, about the build, and it just seems strange that someone who'd made such a huge difference so quickly, and then suddenly, for some unknown reason, I've seen it sort of evaporate. And I just asked the question, you're 100% right, Ben. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. It's part of the build. But why has that suddenly coincided with the bad results, right? And also this outburst and some of the comments that we've witnessed from Ange over the last 3 or 4 months?
When things are going great, when something just starts, there's a great feeling around the club. There's a feeling of change. It reinvigorates people. As soon as something starts to go wrong, you see what people are really made out of. And a lot of these players haven't been able to get back to the previous levels because maybe they're just not made out of the right stuff and they shouldn't be here. I think that's the reality.
He's also got to make mistakes as well. Like for me, bringing in Jedinek, having Ryan Mason still involved in really important things is a mistake, and that's not backing from a club. If he's come in there and said, no, you know what? I don't want an attacking coordinator or a defensive coordinator. I actually want Ryan Mason. If that's what
he said it though, Brains. He said it. Gianni Vaio, right? One of the top coaches. Well, listen, we scored 23% of our goals. 23% of our goals were scored from set pieces the previous season under Conte, right? And, he didn't do defensive, he did attacking set pieces. Stellini, funny enough, was in charge of the defensive coordination. Both of them have gone, and we've imploded. All right, we've lost our best defensive header of the ball, which was Harry Kane. But, I just, I do worry that was a fundamental mistake. When you see, Brentford, who have brought in some of the top, set piece coaches from around the world, and they've all been poached. Everyone's modern football. Set pieces are very much an important part of modern football, and I think he's dismissing it a little bit lightly that he doesn't need one.
But to be fair, Johnny, to be fair to him, I do think that after the Arsenal game or maybe the game after, I do think the defensive set pieces have got better and we have changed our strategy in how we defend those set pieces.
We conceded one against Chelsea, the game after.
Yeah, so maybe it was the game after that.
Well, I think...
Have we conceded one since then?
I know, but we can't tell. It's only been a few games. You need
we were conceding one every single game.
I know, but...
Only the third stopped zonal marking.
But Aston... they have stopped zonal marking, exactly. So they have changed their strategy on how they defend set pieces.
Yeah. But it's just...
You need to see over a longer period, I feel.
To build. They've got... And I think you've seen that, they have been firing and bringing extra staff in certain areas. His whole thing is a delegator. That's his style. Like he handles mentality, game state, and formation of play. But he needs things to be delegated. So then you must get winning mentality guys to delegate. Like, and I'm sorry, but how is Miles Jedinek a winning mentality guy? How is Ryan Mason a winning mentality? Right? So you need everyone around the team. Every single person with a voice that's around that team needs to be winning mentality. And I'm sorry, one of the flaws in his, and I used it as a kind of like what I'm trying to imagine his approach is, we go forward no matter what. I don't agree with that, by the way. I think you don't build a winning mentality by potentially losing some games. You build a winning mentality by winning at all costs. Do what it takes to win. If you go up against a team, I know that you're trying to get people to go forward and be brave, but you must have a setup that allows you to fall in place. How many games do you see teams when they're up 2-0 up? Chelsea last night, everyone behind the ball fighting for every second to not lose a goal, How we should be able to do that. The one thing I did like about Mourinho and that I did like about Conte is that they formed the 5-4 line and they stopped things and they made the white wall. Like, we need to have a bit of that in as well. And I think that would add. I don't think it's weak mentality if you get everyone behind the ball. I don't think that's weak at all. I say that's strength. Like, come at us.
So, Brains, you're 100%. So this is, you made a very good point here. You see, Ange wants us to play in the 91st minute the same as we do in the first minute. And I don't agree with it. I'm sorry. When you're 1-0 up and there's a few minutes to go, you play pragmatic football. You hold the ball. You change your formation slightly. to be a little bit more defensive. No, we play on. We don't, we don't change our philosophy. Well, I'm sorry, as in-game management, and I don't know how many games we've lost or we've thrown away from that. I know we've won plenty, but I just think that sometimes, you have an ethos and you have a way and a mythology, but sometimes you need to tweak it just a little bit, because this is the Premier League. This is the elite of football, the elite football managers, elite football players. And sometimes your mindset of what you've used in the J League and Australian League and the Scottish SPL is great. But this is the big boy league now. And sometimes you have to adapt or die.
And sometimes,
I think he can adapt. I think he can adapt. You saw it on Tuesday. We saw it on Tuesday.
Second last game of the season, though.
37 games, Simeon.
Okay, but this is first year. I think, but I think this season he has chopped the team around a lot. I think he does have a stubbornness about him, and I do think his willingness to adapt mid-game and game management will be, what wins or makes him a success or a failure of this club. But I do think he can do it, and I think Tuesday did show a bit of a willingness to experiment a bit more, which is something I've been calling on him to do the whole season. I know second last game of the season, but hopefully that will lead into something next season.
Did he experiment, Tim? Did he really experiment?
He did, yeah, I think so.
Right, was he not forced into the experiment? If Destiny was fit, Dragusin would be sitting there gathering dust on the bench, and we'd be hearing his agent talking about Napoli or wherever.
Well, the last few games, he hasn't played a false nine without when Richarlison's been injured. In this one, he did. Yeah. So I think that was a bit of an experiment, which I think was something he changed and did tweak. And hopefully next season, I do want to see more of that. But I also think it's very important to drill in as much as possible the way he wants to play. He wants to drill it in so it becomes second nature to the team. And that is always going to cause bumps in the road. That's always going to teams are going to exploit it. And teams are, when you're not there yet, when you're not 100% like perfectly oiled machine where this like the whole system second nature and you've perfected it, there's always going to be teams who adjust to stop you and blah blah blah. But I guess the thinking is, in a year's time or next season, another pre-season under our belt and all this kind of stuff, then this team will have perfected how we want to play, and then all of a sudden, regardless of whether teams know how we want to play or not, we're going to be very, very difficult to stop. And that,
what about
we're
the
going to play the same way.
What about the 5 or 6 new signings? So they're going to have to start at the beginning again. So
the difference is, Johnny, everyone had to start at the beginning this time. Now it's only going to be 5 players starting at the beginning. That's a difference. So it's different. If you've got 5 players getting integrated into a team where everyone knows their role, it's different to the whole team looking to get integrated into their role.
Especially from pragmatic football.
Exactly, especially from doing a 180. Yeah. So I think we need a bit of patience on that side. And for me, it's not a case of looking for him to change up even now, although I would like him to do in certain scenarios. I'm fine with him just continuing to play as he is right now. But if at the end of next season we're still having the same conversation, then we got a problem, I think.
Well, I would view it like, what my absolute hope is, and I think the answer to the question is, can he change the mentality? I think it is yes. If he says, like, if he looks at it like, look, I came in and I didn't change a single thing about how I view the game, and it got us 5th. But if he looks at the losses, if he looks at the way that we lost certain games, in the momentums that we lost them in, then hopefully he would go, okay, well, this was right about the season, and this here was wrong. This is how we lost games. Now, this is what I'm going to build on in the market and pre-season, and this is what we move forward on. We fix the things that we now know is a problem. Number 9 is a problem. We aren't scoring. We didn't fill the gap of Harry Kane. Now we need to do that in the market, but also the having the right backs, left backs, so that we don't get in the situation when one player's out, we're dead. We are dead, and also that he understands what we were talking about a couple of seconds ago, is that football at every level, at grassroots all the way through, is a game of momentum. A team can be up. As soon as momentum changes, you can lose 2-3 goals like that in football. Mm-hmm. So he has to understand that it's you in the moment when a team has the momentum on you. I'm sorry, you cannot just go forward. it's an amazing thing to try get people to do. But when the tide is done that way, it just takes a little bit of a moment for you to put your feet in the ground, get everyone in line strong, hold, then change the moment and start again. The moment shifting doesn't happen on split seconds. It's 20, 30 passes. And your team can get broken down in those moments.
I think he knows that. This guy's been a manager for for over, nearly 30 years. I think he knows all this, and I think he's doing this very purposefully at the moment as to why he's going in this direction.
That is my hope.
You know what? I saw some tweets from Celtic fans saying exactly the same things that we're all saying in his first season. Oh, why is he so naive? Why is he so open? We're losing games. Why doesn't he change up? Blah blah blah. And then the next season, they won the treble. Were they unbeaten or something? I don't know. But they
won the league that season when they were complaining about him.
Yeah. So
you could win the treble, mate. You could win the treble. Okay?
Yeah, maybe.
Right. You see my Football Manager CV. I'll win the treble over there.
Let me tell you something. Brendan Rodgers. He's gone up there and he's smashing it up. I mean, I don't know. It's different. I've watched that football. Listen, I watched Premier League football. I went to live up in Scotland and I watched Rangers Celtic, and believe me, the level of football. And I was there when Gazza and Ali McCoist, and that was the best Rangers team they've probably ever had.
Lorenzo Amoruso and that.
Amoruso, yeah.
Amoruso,
I loved all that.
Van Bronckhorst.
Lodrip.
But look, when you're talking about trying to change a mentality of a team, when you're looking at fans from all over the Premier League, when you're looking at fans within Spurs saying after Tuesday, it just shows the small club mentality that Tottenham have because they wanted Arsenal not to win the title instead of Spurs having a slight chance of top four. No, I don't think it is rubbish. I don't think it is rubbish because I do think that is a small club mentality. But what can they expect from Spurs when we've acted like a small club for the past 30 years? Like, this all stems from the top. We have been acting like a small club year in, year out. The only time in the history of Spurs, which I can remember by supporting Spurs, is the moment where we haven't cared about Arsenal is under Pochettino over those 2-3 years when we were better than them. That's the only time in my Spurs supporting history that I can remember not caring about Arsenal because they were all the way down there and we were up there fighting for a title, getting to Champions League final.
Tottenham Day.
That we got rid of that, but now it's all back. Yeah. But how can you expect us to not have a small club mentality when we're sacking managers a few days before a cup final? How can you expect us not to have a small club mentality when in 1991 we broke the record for the amount of FA Cups and now we're sitting here 2024 and Arsenal have almost doubled that? You know what I mean? We have been acting like a small club year in, year out for so many years now, and this kind of way of just trying to tell the fans stop acting like a small club. No, I'm sorry. It stems much further and deeper than that. This goes from the top of the club all the way to the bottom. So unless Spurs start acting like a big club, then that is when the mentality is going to change. And that has got to be in tandem with Ange Postecoglou and Daniel Levy and everyone that is working in the back end of the club to try and take this club forward. It doesn't start from the fans. This starts from inside the club.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Can't disagree with you there, Ben. I mean, what I meant by small mentality, we all want to win. We all want to win. I don't want to be defined by Tuesday of what the press, produced, to create something. And I don't want to be defined by that because I don't feel that that's me, and I don't feel that's the vast majority of Spurs fans. The vast majority of Spurs fans want more than what we're giving. But somehow along the line, this fan base, and I think this suits Daniel Levy, has become so divided. I thought we were united once again. After those games when we won against Liverpool and Sheffield United, there's late goals and everyone was dancing in the stands. I thought, thank God, we're all united once again. But I feel this toxicity and division has returned to the club, and that only suits one man. The man at the top, because if we were united and got together and we called upon the board to change the way forward and take us to the promised land, that's what Arsenal fans did when they marched on Kroenke, right, and said we want change, and they got it, and they backed their manager, and the rest we can see, ever since then with money and finance and quality players. And if we were united and we managed to get the ball to realise, you know, we're all in this together. We're all against you. You need to change. You need to back this manager or the right manager with finances and the right players. Then we'll be fine. But whilst we're all divided, we're playing into the hands of the owners, I feel.
Well, anyway, let's move on and talk about the last topic of the debate today. And we're going to talk about if Champions League is going to hurt Spurs for next season. What do you reckon, Brains?
Well, it's a tricky one. Like,
that was a big sigh.
I mean, I personally, like, I don't see the point in going into a massive European competition, especially with the new structures of competitions where there's so much more games. I don't really see the benefit if you're as early as we are in the build. You're almost asking for kind of cannon fodder in that way. I do see the financial benefit, obviously, and I do see, like, you know, like there was a thing that you know, Ange's point of view of like mentality of club, and when he speaks to players coming into the club, he tells them things like, "When I'm done, you won't recognize this club again." And it really it seemed to work and start players coming to us rather than, you know, European giants, right? Now, a big part of that, he isn't selling them on Champions League, but and he can say, you know, forget Champions League all you want, but Champions League is a hugely watched competition worldwide. Right, it's a massive brand. It's big money coming in. Players see that as the height, the ceiling of the game. You know, like unless you're playing in a World Cup semi-finals or whatever, getting to a Champions League semi-final and final is like the biggest thing that you can do in football in many ways. So it isn't something to be sniffed at, but I just think we maybe have to believe in the process towards getting a team that has 24 players where you could change anyone and they're as good as each other. You know what I mean? Like City have such an unbelievable squad. Arsenal don't have that squad yet, but they have built over 500, 600 million to be able to get in and then just bring one player in a season. We're nowhere near it. I fear, even though I think it is good for playing young players and giving youth a chance in European games, I think Villa and I think other teams come into the Europa League, and I think they see it as something they can win. When we're talking about using kids in that for me is saying we're not really going into that to win it. We're just going in to give kids use maybe a Carabao Cup or something, but I just don't see really that you can go in and be competitive in those competitions if your squad isn't ready. Like that's for me. I would just rather like us to focus on getting either a FA Cup, like getting high up in the league, but have a good season so that we can actually see the foundations that we can go and compete. And I know people argue me with like, well, the structure is that actually you might only need 2 wins and you can get you can get to the quarters, and it's like that's not really what I'm saying. I want to see the squad built before we kind of move on to the biggest challenges, or else it's just going to be that thing where we get to the final and we did need a few more things before we were ready for that, you know. So
but Brains, what would you say? What would you say to the fans that would say that if you get into the Champions League, regardless how you're doing it, it gives you more money to work with for rebuilding your squad?
I mean, it's true. It is true, and that's a valid argument. It's I have to be confident that the club is going to spend the money, is going to use that money to back Ange. And in the past, we haven't used the money 100% to back a manager. Like we got to a final and they didn't use money to back Poch, you know? So for me, it's like, it's always this problem of, do I believe, like it's great bringing money in, but do I believe they're going to spend the money well? So I think we are building and look at the budgets of what we're looking to spend. Looks like we're kind of not really building a championship title team. It looks like we're kind of going to try build going for top 4 every year team. That's just my opinion. Even the names of like the realistic names that we've been linked with, it doesn't really seem like we're going out to be a top challenge.
And that's team. Back to small club mentality.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They have to behave. You know, you can't change a club from the bottom up, which is what they're asking. You know, you have to change from top down. You know, that's how general world economics work. Change comes from top down.
Yeah. Johnny, do you think that no Champions League will hurt Spurs next season?
Look, financially, you can make the argument. Daniel Levy certainly will. You know, he will use the usual yardstick. Unfortunately, we're not in the Champions League. Therefore, our budget is reduced. Therefore, we have to sell to buy. We know the script, okay? I'm not interested in the script. Look, Arsenal spent money. They weren't in the before they were in the Champions League that season. Chelsea have spent big. They weren't in the Champions League. Aston Villa spent really big. They weren't in the Champions League. So it's not an excuse that washes for me. For me, Ange's record in European football is quite shocking. I know Celtic.
I mean, he's been playing with Celtic, though. I mean, I remember a game he played Real Madrid off the park.
He played well for 20 minutes. Yeah, I've seen it all. Right? Yeah, but
I've seen it all.
They missed so many chances.
Yeah.
Listen. I heard it all. Right, but at the end of the day, you lost. Right. So what I would say to you is, with this squad, and I still want to get away from this bloody thing that they keep going on about. He's not a first team member. He'll never make the first 11. Forget it. 21st century football is about the squad. It's not about the first team. You need to have a squad. This squad is not ready for Champions League. Okay, let's go into the Europa League. There's no drop down this season from the Champions League. So we know exactly who we got to beat. And I'm looking at it now and I'm seeing Roma, potentially Newcastle, or I don't think Chelsea will be in it because they're breaching FIFA rules on expenditure already. So it might be Newcastle and maybe Lazio, right? Those are the teams I'm seeing.
Porto as well, yeah.
Porto, right? So, but what I'm saying to you is, I believe that we could win this competition. There's no drop down from the Champions League. It is what it is. Okay. Second of all, the fringe players. We played the least amount of games this season that we have done in 19 years. So there's more games. We need squad. That means the fringe players are now going to have an opportunity to be bled in and show what they can do, perform in these games. And to back what Brains is saying, I'm not saying going out and playing, 16-year-old kids like Mikey Moore, who's been played, to say, look, there's a future for you here. That's what that's about. But to maybe give a Phillips or a Donnelly, minutes on the bench to come on, to play the game. Because once you've qualified, more or less, you're through to that next round. And we can play those games. It means if we're in the Champions League, you have to play your strongest team every single week and then go into the league. And this, we can play a mixture of first team, fringe, players he wants to see and get a feel for it. I think it's beneficial. Second of all, the prize money has been raised significantly this year, in line with not only the extra game that we're going to have now, but by also the prize money. So I think all in all, this is where we're at. This is what we deserve because the league's told us so. But this is our best opportunity to develop the squad, give players a chance, and actually have something which I want to see as us winning something. And this is a winnable trophy. I believe this is winnable. I'm looking at the teams and I'm saying, you know what? This is winnable. Look at them yourselves, guys. When we come off the channel, if you're watching this now, go and look at the teams and tell me if you think on your day with our best team that we could not beat every single one of those teams. And I'm going to go into the season next season with the belief that that's possible. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no. Another positive thing about the Europa League, there's going to be no dropouts from the Champions League anymore. You just said that. Sorry, I missed that. So, but in terms of is it going to hurt us or not? I don't see a reason why it should hurt us. With the amount of players that we need to sell, with the money that's available, with all the money coming into the club right now, it really shouldn't hurt us. And for people to say that we can attract better players inside the Champions League than outside the Champions League, I mean, all you need to do is look at the caliber of player we've been able to bring in while not being in the Champions League. You look at the Mickey van der Vens, the Kuti Romeros, and there's endless amount of players that you can talk about. So yes, fine, everyone would like to be in the Champions League, everyone likes to dine at the top table, we all do, but there are a lot of values being in the Europa League. I completely agree with you, Johnny. It's a competition that we can 100% win next season. And in terms of the caliber of player coming into this football club, I don't think it should change the targets that we're going for this summer. Don't know what you think.
Well,
Sam.
I think naturally there are going to be some targets where if you have a bit more wiggle room, maybe you go for, and if you don't have that wiggle room, like look, at the end of the day,
do you
it's an
think
extra 100 million?
But do you think that we're going to spend more money on a particular player if we're in the Champions League or out the Champions League? Whether
There
we're in
might be a player where if we got Champions League and we got, let's say, the extra 50, 100 million, we can say actually we might be able to push the boat out a bit more for that player. And if we're not in it, we'll have to go for plan B or C.
But we've never done that in the history of this football club, whether we're in the Champions League or out the Champions League. We're not going to go spend 100 million on a Declan Rice if we're in the Champions League.
I'm just saying there might be. So I'm not saying there is definitely that scenario. I'm just saying there might be some scenarios where on certain targets we might have a plan A if we were in the Champions League, where if we had an extra 50 million, we say, okay, we've got a bit more wiggle room. We can actually push the boat out a bit more. But because we're not for that specific player, well, I don't think he's going to be able to. We're not going to be able to obtain it. I don't think it's going to be a massive issue. It shouldn't be financially. I do think, look, naturally, when you get an extra 100 million, there's going to be a bit more wiggle room. Without that extra 100 million, that wiggle room isn't going to be there. So I'm not saying we should be running a tight ship just because of that. I'm not going to have any money to spend. That would be ridiculous. I'm just saying, if we're in the Champions League, I would like to think, I'd guess, there'll probably be a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to certain prices when signing players or not. But apart from that, as you say, look, I think the days where Champions League was a be-all and end-all when it came to attracting players, I think is long gone, in my opinion. I think back in maybe, the late 2000s, when we were getting Champions League first time, essentially back in like 2010, in those kind of days, I think Champions League was a much bigger deal when it came to getting players in, people seeing your club as prestigious, all this kind of thing. Now you're seeing clubs like Bournemouth compete with clubs like AC Milan because they offer more money. And, it's not like Bournemouth offering Champions League football or anything like that. It's purely because Premier League, there's a lot of money in it. That's where that's where it's at. That's where players want to play. That's where all the attention is. I don't think when it comes to joining Tottenham or joining a Champions League team in another league, I think there's not much. I don't think it hurts us too much. I think us not being in the Champions League, teams are still going to want to come to us because we're probably going to offer better wages. Now, obviously, when it comes to competing against the top three, it's going to be quite difficult. But that would have been difficult anyway. Even if we weren't in the Champions League, it would have been very difficult to compete with them to sign players, regardless. So I don't think it hurts us too much in terms of our standing when it comes to will teams join us or not. Sorry, will players join us or not? I think obviously it doesn't help. It doesn't help us, but I don't think it hurts us too much. I think it's probably a minimal how much it would decrease our standing. And I think, as I say, we're a very attractive club at the moment. You see, obviously, the new stadium that's bringing a lot of money, and I think clubs see us as a big club at the moment. Obviously, we did make the Champions League final back in I know it was 2019, but people still remember that, and I still think that we're seen as a big club to join. And obviously, being in the Premier League, we offer a lot of money. When it comes to playing wise, being in Europa League, look, people say that Europa League better chance of winning it. The fact of the matter is, the barefaced fact is, we've gone further in the Champions League than we have gone in the Europa League. That is the reality. As well, I mean, obviously we won the UEFA Cup back in the 80s, but since it turned into Europa League back in, I think, 2008, we haven't made it past the quarterfinals. I don't think we only made it there once. I think it was Basel. So I don't really, I'd like to think if we take it really seriously, it's definitely a competition we can win 100%. But we've been, in years gone by, we've had good
dreams
teams.
Do come true, Sid.
I'm just saying, in years gone by, we've had good teams in that competition, and it hasn't been the case. We've gone out early, and we haven't, maybe we haven't taken it seriously, or I don't know what it is, or we've rested players, or whatever. But hopefully, if we do take it seriously, obviously it is a competition we can seriously win. I do think Thursday, Sunday isn't great. I do think, as much as people say it's the same as Wednesday, Saturday, I don't really see it that way, because when it's Wednesday, Saturday, I still think the travel time doesn't, I think, affect you as much. I think when you're playing the game at the start of the weekend, whereas you're constantly playing on a Sunday all the time, you only have one rest day. It can be a bit of an issue. So I think that does have a bit of a drain on the squad, but that's something you're going to have to deal with. Hopefully, if you rotate properly in the group stages, you can get by. Look, I've seen teams have successful Europa League campaigns and successful league campaigns as well. So it's something you can accommodate. It's just going to be that little bit more problematic, I feel. But that is something we're going to have to deal with.
You got Tuesday as well, haven't you? You got Tuesday, Saturday, which is that
Tuesday, Saturday. You go the extra day, which is obviously that does happen a lot. So, do I think it will hurt us? I don't think it's going to hurt us too much. I don't think it's going to make too much a difference in terms of our ambitions, in terms of what we can achieve. I think it's just as much. If anything, we can probably more chance of winning a trophy. But I don't think it helps us. Essentially, I don't subscribe to the opinion that being Europa League helps us. In my opinion.
Yeah, and when you're attracting players that say, oh, they only want Champions League football, we don't want those kind of players. We want players that are going to grow with this team, and we want players that are going to buy into the project that we have here, not just come here just because we're in the Champions League. So I think that's another factor. But anything you guys want to say before we end the show?
Oh no, just you would maybe get a couple of players in who are happy to get knocked out by Fulham in the first round. Listen, look, I still haven't forgiven Ange for that. 9 substitutions and 9 changes. We were winning 9 subs. Who makes 9 subs to a team? Even if you've got a youth or a kids team, no one makes 9 subs and expects to win a game. That was our one chance, I felt, of going for a trophy, going for
Who won it, Johnny?
Huh?
Who won it?
Well, we know who won it.
Who won it?
It was City, right?
Exactly. So it wasn't a real... I mean, were we going to beat City?
I'd rather be there. I'd rather keep the dream alive.
We lost to them in the FA Cup.
Yeah, 1-0. We played well. Not.
As we did on Tuesday, we gave it our all. We just fell short just that final in that little bit.
What about the game away from home? When we went there with Ben Davis and Emerson as our centre-backs, we all feared the worst. And lo and behold, what happened? We got a 3-3 draw. Who would have written that? So dreams can come true. I'm going to end positively. Tonight, it's the Spurs under-21 final.
Come on.
It's on Spurs Play. And if you're going down, I'm going down tonight. I'm sure there's quite a few of us going down.
Yeah, I can't make it in
tonight.
the end.
Our future's bright. The future's lily white. There's a lot of talent coming through. Hopefully, they'll make it through to that first team. That's a positive. And also, our others were in the Premier 2, the other Cup game against Chelsea. I'm not sure when that's going to go ahead, but there is positivity. We're in Europe. It could have been worse. We lost Harry Kane. Come on, let's end positive.
Up the Spurs, and you know what, Johnny? We could have a second cup final for the under-21s as well if we beat Chelsea on Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which I'm sure you'll be at as well. But actually, in the comments, they've just corrected us because actually it was Liverpool that won the Carabao Cup this year with Chelsea in the final.
Sorry.
So maybe we could have won it then. Maybe I take that back.
Sorry, I don't know. I'm City. I can't get out City mode.
We would have beaten Liverpool's kids.
We couldn't beat Brighton's. Brighton had 14 players missing, and we still couldn't beat them.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Thanks for having me, guys.
No, thanks for coming on, Johnny.
I would like to end on a positive as well, and that positive would be.
You're all mudded.
Arsenal.
My battery's about to die.
When you're talking about the weak mind state, I say that Arsenal have one of the weakest mind states amongst fans that you'll ever see. That they needed Spurs to hand them a trophy because they couldn't do it themselves. They were going to banter us for us. We are so in their heads. That's the way you need to see it.
I'd love to have a season like a crappy season like they've had this season. I look forward to that next year. I would enjoy that.
In Big Ange we trust, Johnny, eh?
Yes, exactly.
But listen, they've had 5 years. Arteta has had nearly 600 million spent on his squad. He's been allowed to change entirely his squad. This has been a huge journey for them, and they still can't win the league. It's not going to happen next season. This was it. So, for their entire journey to end with, please, Spurs, win us a league. That is so incredibly pathetic. That's how I saw it. And I was actually gonna use if we did win that game, and they always tried to make me I was always just gonna go, oh yeah, like that trophy that we gave you. That's how pathetic that club is. So that's the way I would like to end. Let's just all remember that fact.
Right.
Yeah, look, I could argue that, but I just can't be asked at this point. I just would like, I would like to stick on your narrative on that one. But thank you, Brains and Johnny, for coming and joining us today. No problem at all. Big up to everyone in the chat as well. We'll see you all very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.